Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. I yanked open the nightstand drawer and my stomach dropped hard. For a second, I honestly thought I miscounted last time. My name is Emily, and I was 29 that morning. I grabbed the condom box and shook it like it owed me answers. Little plastic wrappers rattled around, nowhere near as many as before. I dumped them on the bed and started lining them up. 11 wrappers stared back at me like a bad joke. There had been a full box before his trip, I was sure. Half the row was just air and wrinkled cardboard edges. My chest buzzed with that thin, sick feeling you get before bad news. I checked the time on my phone with numb fingers. His plane had taken off an hour earlier, give or take. Too late to call now. Any question about condoms would sound insane. I opened our last chat and scrolled just to steady myself. Every sweet message suddenly felt scripted, like he rehearsed each word. Back then I told myself I might be overreacting again, classic me. I even tried to laugh and called myself dramatic out loud. People miscount things all the time, especially when they are stressed. Still, my brain kept circling the same ugly thought on repeat. Why does a married man fly home carrying a travel condom stash? I marched to the bathroom and checked the tiny trash bin. 3 wrappers lay crumpled inside, proof he still used protection here. The math did not add up, no matter how kindly I twisted it. Missing wrappers meant someone somewhere had access to his body besides me. That idea burned through my little rationalizations like nothing else could. I went back to the bed and counted everything once more. Wrappers on the blanket, wrappers in the trash, and the empty spaces. My voice came out thin as I whispered the numbers to myself. I even checked the floor and under the mattress like an investigator. Nothing popped up except dust and that growing heavy dread in my ribs. I opened his side of the closet and stared at the empty hangers. Yesterday his luggage sat right there, zipped and ridiculously neat beside them. I replayed him closing it, pressing down hard like he hid something fragile. Back then I just thought he overpacked gifts for his relatives there. Now my mind swapped the image for foil squares tucked between shirts. I pulled one of his spare backpacks down and pawed through the pockets. Old receipts, a broken pen, and a couple loose coins slid out. No spare condoms, no secret stash, just regular travel junk and crumbs. For a second I almost wished I would find something damning and obvious. Living in proof felt easier in my head than living in doubt. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened our messages again. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard while my brain ran in circles. Do I ask about condoms or pretend nothing feels off for now? I typed, "Where did you put the rest?" then erased it fast. The empty text box looked louder than any accusation I could send. Instead I typed, "How is the airport?" and added a small heart. The second I hit send, shame crawled up my neck in waves. I felt like I had just betrayed myself by playing the chilled wife. 3 dots popped up right away, which meant his phone was in hand. He answered, smooth and kind and careful, while my eyes stayed on the condoms. I stared at his bubbly, harmless reply and read it twice slowly. Nothing in there mentioned missing things or plans or the way he packed. He talked about long lines and snacks and how he already missed me. It sounded exactly like what a good partner should say during a trip. My gut still pulsed like an alarm I kept trying to mute. Sitting there, I realized this stupid little box had split our marriage. Not in a legal way yet, only in my head and chest. On one side sat the story where he was thoughtless and innocent. On the other side lived the version where he prepared to cheat. I did not know yet which story would win, but the drawer had voted first. My phone vibrated on the counter and I grabbed it fast. His face filled the screen, smiling way too hard for someone jet-lagged. Caption under the selfie read, "Made it," and a stupid airplane emoji. He had the kind of grin people use when they sell something. I stared longer than normal, trying to hear the parts he skipped. I typed, "Cute, you look exhausted," and hit send too quickly. My thumb hovered there afterward, like I could pull the message back. 3 dots flashed, then vanished, then came back like he was editing. Finally he wrote, "Miss you already, I'll call later when it's quieter." That word, quieter, stuck to me because I could not hear anything. Later that day, another picture popped up while I was doing dishes. This time he was surrounded by relatives I only knew from screens. Everyone crowded around him, hands thrown up, wide open smiles everywhere. I zoomed in on each face, checking for someone I did not recognize. It looked loud and chaotic, which honestly fit where he said he was. For a couple of minutes I relaxed and let myself believe him. Group photos feel safe, less room for side stories. I even recorded a quick video back, teased him about leaving me. He sent back a string of laughing emojis and a tiny heart. On the surface, it looked like normal long-distance married people stuff. The next photo landed way quieter, just a soft buzz on the table. When I opened it, my chest tightened before my brain caught up. He sat alone in a booth, chin tilted, eyes half amused at something. There were 2 glasses on the table, both with straws angled different directions. And on the seat behind him, almost cropped out, rested a small purse. I did the stupid thing and pinched the screen until it blurred. The bag came into focus slow, like it wanted to fight me. Thin strap, polished clasp, a folded jacket partially covering one corner. It was not the kind of thing his relatives carried, I just knew. My hand stayed on the screen while my throat pulled tight around nothing. My first thought was casual, automatic, maybe someone left it there earlier. Then I noticed the jacket sleeve draped over the edge of the seat. It looked placed, not abandoned, like someone stepped away for a minute. I could almost imagine her getting up, telling him to snap that selfie. That picture turned my stomach in a way I could not downplay. I took a screenshot, then another, like the image might run away. My mind started doing these quick jumps, trying to build a harmless story. Maybe the server dropped her stuff there, maybe a cousin sat off camera. I added little maybe after little maybe, stacking them like flimsy excuses. Under all of that, something colder pressed in and refused to move. Looks fun, I typed, then stopped, then erased the whole thing completely. I tried again, made it sound lighter, almost stupidly playful on purpose. You on a date with your drink or what? I wrote instead. My thumb floated above send, while my heart hammered against my ribs. I finally tapped the screen and instantly regretted every word I chose. He answered fast, hanging out at a cafe near my parents' place. Another message followed. My cousin just went to pay at the counter. I stared at those lines, then looked back at the purse again. If that bag belonged to his cousin, where was the rest of her? The seat behind him stayed empty, waiting like even the picture was lying. I typed looks nice and forced a smile I did not feel at all. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached, even though I stayed silent. He sent another photo right away, this one cropped much tighter around him. No purse, no spare glass, just his face and part of the booth. He added better, and a winky face I suddenly hated with my whole body. In that moment I understood something about him I had ignored. He noticed what I noticed immediately and moved to erase it. He did not ask what bothered me, he just edited the scene. That instinct to hide, to manage my reaction, told me plenty already. You can feel when someone rearranges reality, even through a tiny screen. I forwarded the original shot to my close friend with shaking fingers. Tell me what you see, no hints, I wrote underneath it. Those minutes waiting dragged harder than any long silent fight we ever had. She finally replied, who's the purse belong to and why is he solo? Seeing her type it out hit harder than my own private suspicion. My brain dragged up his earlier message about things being loud there. Nothing in that picture looked loud, just him tucked away with company off frame. I scrolled back through our thread, checking all his words for matching pieces. The timing of his texts lined up, but the vibe felt totally different. Like he ran parallel lives, one noisy and family-filled, one carefully edited. I could have confronted hard right there, asked whose stuff that was. Instead I typed, tell your cousin thanks for keeping you entertained, and laughed once. It came out sharp ugly, even though no one else heard it. He replied with another stupid heart, then changed the subject to food. I followed his lead, and that was the choice that still stings. Looking back now, that photo was my first real fork in the road. Either I dig in, press for truth, risk ruining his precious visit. Or I swallow the weirdness and pretend everything adds up like he claims. I chose the second option that day, hiding behind polite emojis and jokes. I did not realize yet that little purse would follow me everywhere. I unlocked our banking app and my throat went dry. My thumb hovered over the balance while my heart pounded loud. One line on the recent activity list looked wrong immediately. Hotel charge out of state, total higher than our usual groceries. Every part of me froze on that single line of text. I tapped the transaction and pulled it open with shaking hands. The location did not match the town where his parents live. Different city, different area, not even close on the little map. The stamp sat right under the amount like a small threat. It lined up almost exactly with when he said he felt tired. I stared at that time and replayed our messages from that night. He had texted that he was exhausted and falling asleep early. He told me he was with relatives, joking around, eating too much. Meanwhile, this charge showed up under a boutique hotel listing. The gap between his story and the numbers felt bigger than miles. I copied the hotel name and pasted it into a browser search. Images loaded one after another, each more romantic than the last. Every picture showed soft bedding and a single large bed in center. There were photos of couples holding hands near the lobby staircase. Nothing about it looked like a place you crash with loud cousins. I tapped on the map section and zoomed out for distance. The route to his parents' place looked long and annoying on purpose. You had to cross the city, then keep going another 30 minutes. Nobody accidentally stays there when their family home sits far away. That extra distance felt like a choice, not an innocent mix-up. I snapped a screenshot of the transaction, then one of the hotel page. My camera roll turned into a small evidence folder within seconds. I flipped between screenshots and our chat, comparing times and excuses. He wrote about watching movies with his relatives around that exact hour. The hotel record insisted he was paying for something very different. For a short moment, I tried the kind explanation again, out of habit. Maybe his card got stolen, maybe someone copied the number somehow. I even pictured him hunched at a kitchen table canceling cards. Then I remembered his selfie that same evening, quiet and relaxed. Nothing about his messages sounded like a man dealing with fraud. I opened our text thread and scrolled to that night on fast forward. There it was, his message about being full and ready to sleep. He told me his phone battery was low and he would rest. So why was his card buying a romantic overnight stay instead? That simple question sat in my chest heavier than any accusation. I typed out a message right there on the couch. "Hey, did you use our card anywhere weird today?" I wrote. I stared at the words, then erased the whole thing in one swipe. The wording felt too soft for what I had just uncovered. Also too harsh somehow, like I was accusing him of theft. Instead, I opened a chat with my closest friend and dropped screenshots. My hands trembled so much, I nearly sent them to my mom. "All of this happened while he swore he was with family," I wrote. I asked her straight out what she thought, no extra context. My heart beat against my ribs while I watched the typing bubble. She replied fast, "That's a couple's hotel, I know that chain." Another line popped up before I could breathe, blunt and short. "Why would he need that place if he already has family housing?" Her bluntness punched through every excuse I had tried to build. I realized I was working way harder than him to keep things clean. The urge to call him right then nearly knocked me over. I pictured his voice, calm and patient, smoothing this down again. He was good at that, flipping things back on my anxious side. If I called without a plan, he would turn this on me. I backed out of the dial screen and went back to staring. The transaction amount pulled my focus again, steady and undeniable. It was not a quick drink, it was an overnight stay price. Plus a little extra, like room service or some convenience fee. Money never lies the way people do when they want comfort. And this money told a story that did not include me anywhere. Lying there on the couch, I weighed my options like a checklist. I could ignore it and pretend this was all paranoia and stress. I could text some half-question and invite another smooth explanation. Or I could wait, gather myself, and confront him when I felt solid. Waiting felt like swallowing glass, but confronting felt like jumping with no net. In the end, I closed every app and placed the phone face down. I told myself I would sleep on it and call him in the morning. I knew that once I asked about this hotel, something would crack. There is a moment where marriage shifts from trust to investigation. That night, with that charge on the screen, I knew I had crossed it. I hit the call button before I could talk myself down. The ringtone jumped in my ear and my free hand shook. I paced across the room, counting the beeps like they were punches. By the fourth one, I already hated this version of myself. The one who knew something was off and still hoped for comfort. He picked up with a bright "Hey babe" that sounded rehearsed. Cheerful voice, light breathing, zero trace of panic or irritation. "Did I wake you up?" I asked, even though I knew the time. "Now I'm good, just hanging out," came back through the speaker. The normal tone made my throat tighten in the least helpful way. I asked something bland about his relatives just to keep us talking. He went on about visiting everyone, lots of food, long conversations. The words flowed easy, like he had practiced that little routine already. I threw in a laugh here and there, totally fake just to match. The whole thing felt like a script we both agreed to read. While he talked, I opened the banking app again with my thumb. That hotel name glared back at me like it knew I was listening. My pulse climbed higher with each detail he gave about being home. None of it lined up with the charge still highlighted on my screen. I let him finish a story, then cut in before I lost nerve. "Hey, random question," I started, which was a lie right there. My voice came out thinner than I wanted, almost like a teenager. "Did you use our card anywhere weird yesterday?" I forced the words together. Silence dropped on the line so fast I thought the call disconnected. I checked the screen, still connected, still counting seconds against my ear. He responded with a short, confused noise, a little scoff, half laugh. "What do you mean weird?" he asked, the brightness dialed down now. My fingers dug into my thigh while I stared at the hotel listing. "I just saw a charge pop up," I told him, keeping the tone light. "For a place in another city, kind of far from your parents." He blew out air quick, like this was annoying but manageable. "Oh that, yeah, the bank must have messed something up again. Sometimes they route things through other locations, you know how it works." I stood in the middle of the room, absolutely not knowing how it worked. "I never checked into any hotel, that would be crazy," he added, laughing. That laugh hit me harder than any insult would have landed. It was relaxed, like he truly believed the story he was constructing. I slid onto the edge of the bed because my knees felt weak. "Because the name matches an actual hotel with rooms and everything," I pushed. "Kind of a cute one too, based on what I saw online." He chuckled louder when I said that, like I just made a joke. "Wow, you really investigated that, huh?" His voice had this amused edge. "You know banks glitch, right? It's not a big deal." He stretched the words "not a big deal" like he was calming a child. Every stretched syllable made me feel smaller and more ridiculous and angry. I swallowed hard and tried again, this time with the distance detail. "It's not near your parents' place, it's like way across town." I tightened my grip on the phone, nails pressing into my palm. Another pause slipped in, shorter, sharper, than he moved fast. "Oh, I remember now, my cousin used my card for something." He rushed through it, piling words over each other like a small avalanche. "His card was acting up, we were out, he needed to pay." I told him just run mine, we'd figure it out later. "He probably booked something for a friend, you know how generous he is." He tossed in that last line like seasoning, hoping it would distract me. My stomach twisted because the story technically could happen in real life. That was the worst part, it lived right on the edge of believable. I tried to picture his relative begging to borrow the card for lodging. The image did not match anything I actually knew about that person. Still, the part of me desperate for peace clung to it anyway. "So your cousin reserved a room under your card in that city?" I asked. I forced the question out slow, each part shaped like a test. Yeah, it must be that night we went out," he answered quickly. "Remember, I told you we were driving around, he needed my help." He lifted his voice on remember, like he was reminding me of proven facts. I scanned our chat thread on my screen with my thumb. There was no mention of driving around that night, not once. He had described sitting with relatives, watching a movie, feeling sleepy. My jaw clenched so tight my teeth touched in all the wrong places. I don't see anything about that here, I said, tapping the messages. He hummed, then laughed again, this time softer, almost pitying. Babe, I don't text you every single move, that would be weird. You know how it is when you're with family, plans change constantly. So we stopped by this place, he ran in, I waited in the car. He shaped this whole narrative on the fly, like changing the weather. Something inside me pushed back hard, louder than my usual anxious voice. If he used your card for a room, why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because it looks sketchy, I added, and the word hung heavy. There was another pause, longer, air stretched thin between us. Then he finally answered, tone dropping from playful to slightly offended. Honestly, I didn't think it mattered, it was just helping him out. My focus has been on spending time here, not sending you receipts. That's what this feels like right now, like I'm under an audit. He let the phrase sit there. Like I was the unreasonable accountant wife. I could almost see him shaking his head at my insecurity. Hearing that, shame crashed right into the anger already burning. I hated that I instantly wanted to defend myself to the liar. I'm not auditing you, I muttered, squeezing my eyes shut. It popped up and surprised me, that's all. Even as I said it, I knew I was shrinking away from the truth. He leaned into that opening like he had been waiting for it. There's already enough distance right now, he said, voice lower, smoother. I need you to trust me, not treat me like a criminal. If I wanted to hide something, I'd use cash, not our main card. That line landed almost clever, like he was proud of the logic. For a second I actually felt stupid, which still annoys me now. He tossed out a half joke about how bad a cheater he'd be. How dumb would I have to be to leave that trace, he asked. I let out this broken little laugh just to keep up. Inside, another part of me started taking notes instead of believing. I tried once more because something would not let go of the details. Could you at least send a message to the bank just in case, I asked. Or show me the text from your cousin so I don't worry. The line went quiet for a full breath, maybe two. Then he came back with a new problem, of course, his service. Reception here is garbage, every app loads slow, he complained suddenly. If I start messing with the bank site, the call might drop. Can you please relax until I get back, then we handle everything. He shifted the weight of the moment onto some vague future promise. That promise felt like a doorway closing in slow motion on my face. I realized he had not asked once how I felt seeing that charge. He only focused on how much trouble it caused him, how irritating. That recognition hurt more than the hotel itself for some reason. Because that was not bad signal or culture or distance. That was him choosing convenience over my peace every single time. I heard noise on his end, muffled voices, maybe laughter. Hey, I gotta go, everyone's waiting for me, he said lightly. We're about to head out again, I'll call you tonight. He added, don't spiral, okay, everything's fine, like that solved anything. Before I answered, he tossed in a quick love you and ended. I stayed there with the dial tone in my ear like a buzzing insect. The call summary popped up on my screen, short, way too short. I replayed the whole thing in my head, line by line, reaction by reaction. He never once asked what the hotel was actually called, he already knew. Only someone guilty skips straight to the excuse without checking the details. A second later, a new message appeared, a photo from outside. He stood in front of a building, all smiles, arms spread wide. Relatives crowded around again, everybody cheerful, all eyes on the camera. Caption read, see, totally fine here, stop worrying so much, with a heart. That little heart felt like a bandage slapped over a bullet wound. I did what I always did back then, I played along. Sent back a laughing emoji, wrote something about needing a vacation too. I kept my tone light, even though my hands still shook. On the screen, our conversation looked cute, even loving. Off the screen, I could feel the floor under my marriage start to tilt. Looking back, that phone call did something I could never undo. It taught me his first instinct under pressure was to mock and distract. It showed me that my fear made him irritated, not concerned. I heard how easily he twisted my questions into an attack on himself. And for the first time, I started to believe my own doubts over his laughter. My phone buzzed and an unknown name flashed across the top. I almost ignored it because I was tired of surprises from that screen. Then I saw the preview line. Are you his wife? Everything in me locked up before I even opened the app. I tapped the notification with my thumb and the message thread jumped open. No history, no shared memes, just that one blunt question staring at me. Are you married to his full name? She had written, no extra words. Underneath, another bubble already waited. Please answer, this is serious. For a second, I thought it might be some scam fishing for drama. But she had his full name, middle and last, spelled correctly. Not the version he used online, the one on legal documents. My heartbeat stumbled, like my body knew before my brain caught up. I sat down without even realizing I had moved toward the chair. I typed erased, then typed again because my hands would not cooperate. Yes, I'm his wife. Who is this? The dots blinked almost immediately, like she had been pacing with her phone. I'm sorry to do this, I think I'm pregnant, her answer came. I need to know if you're still together. I read that line 3 times, each slower than the last. By the third read, my vision prickled and my jaw low. Zeked tight. Pregnant, that word did not fit anywhere inside the story he told me. I asked, pregnant with whose baby, even though I already knew the implication. She replied, he told me you were over. My hand started shaking so hard I had to put the phone down. I stared at the table for a moment, trying not to pass out. Then I picked it back up because I needed to see everything. What exactly did he say about us? I wrote, fingers stumbling over the screen. I watched her typing indicator flicker in and out like a bad light. She sent a paragraph, then another, rapid fire, like a dam had broken. He told me you separated months ago and only stayed roommates. He said you needed his help with bills until you found your own place. He also said you were dating someone else and he felt free again. Were any of those things true? That last line sliced through whatever denial I had left. I answered with 4 words that felt heavier than they looked. None of that is true. Another pause, then a single response. Jesus. I asked how they met because I needed a timeline before I collapsed. Online last year, she wrote, then corrected herself. Sorry, not last year, a few months back. Then in person when he traveled home, obviously. Why didn't you go with him? That question pierced in a different way, sharp and unfair but honest. I ignored it and pushed her back toward the facts instead. Are you sure you are pregnant? I asked, feeling my stomach twist. She replied with a photo of a test, clear as day, next message following. I've taken 3, all positive. I saved the images automatically, thumb hovering over the download option. Then I realized what I was doing and felt sick all over again. Here I was archiving proof of my life falling apart like a file. Still, I hit save because some other part of me had taken over. The part that treats everything as evidence once trust disappears. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, trying not to sound hateful. Her answer arrived in pieces, broken by hesitation and anger and embarrassment. He keeps going back and forth about what he wants, she wrote. He promised he would leave you completely this time. Then yesterday he panicked and ghosted for hours. She dropped another screenshot without warning, and my breath caught completely. It was their chat, one of many from the look of it. At the top, his contact name saved with a little heart and nickname. Under that, lines of text, some flirty, some practical, all deeply familiar. Exactly the rhythm he used with me, just pointed at someone else. I took my time reading every word, even when it hurt to continue. There he was talking about that same hotel, calling it their spot. He joked about bringing supplies next time so they would not have any scares. One message from him read, I grabbed extra so we don't run out again. That sentence slammed right into the memory of my half-empty drawer. I think I actually said, oh my God, out loud at that point. Not the polite kind, the broken one that sounds like a cough. She must have kept scrolling on her end because more screenshots followed. A photo of the bed, his shoulder in the frame, someone's hair on the pillow. Then another of their dinner, 2 plates, his hand reaching in from the side. I hated myself a little for it, but I zoomed in on everything. The way he smiled, the phrasing he used, the little inside jokes. He told her she was his peace, his escape, his real partner. His words were so smooth they almost sounded like he meant them. The same way they always sounded when he fed them to me. Did you know he was married? I asked because I needed clarity. Yes, but he swore you were just legally tied, not romantically, she answered. He promised the papers were already in progress and you both agreed. He described you as a friend who needed one last favor. That was the only reason I believed him and stayed. Reading that, something in me actually softened toward her for a second. She was not the villain in my head anymore, just another target. Another woman being fed the same tailored lines I swallowed for years. I still resented her, I am not going to lie to you. But the rage shifted direction and landed squarely back on him. Where is he now? I typed, even though I knew roughly the answer. He told me he went to see family again for a few days, she replied. He claimed he needed to explain the situation and return single. He wanted to come back to me with everything clean, she added. That is actually why I finally contacted you. I stared at that last sentence and felt my face grow hot. He was using this trip to spin two completely different stories at once. With me, he acted like we just had a small rough patch. With her, he pretended he was heroically cutting ties with his past. Meanwhile, he lied to both of us about where he slept and with whom. I asked the question I had been circling since her first message. Does he know you're reaching out to me right now? No, she answered instantly. He would lose it if he knew. He told me never to contact you because you are unstable and jealous. That word unstable hit harder than pregnant for some reason. Because that was exactly how he treated me on the phone about the hotel. Like I was crazy for asking obvious follow-up questions about charges. To hear he used that version of me as a warning for someone else. It made my skin crawl in a way I did not know how to explain. I asked for one more thing, even though my hands already hurt from gripping the phone. Can you send a screenshot where he talks about me specifically? There was a long gap, longer than before, then more images arrived. In one, he told her, she freaks out over nothing, I'm just waiting it out. In another, don't worry, I barely touch her anymore, it's basically done. That last line made my stomach churn because it was so specific. He had written it around the time we were still intimate regularly. Including the week before he left, when he packed that ridiculous supply. I remembered his hands on me, his face, the way he watched me. Knowing now he messaged her later pretending I meant nothing felt like a slap. My friend texted me right then, and the notification dropped over everything. Hey, have you eaten? She asked, completely unaware of the current chaos. I snapped a quick reply. Can I call big emergency? I wrote. Then I turned back to the other woman because I was not done. What do you want from him now? I wrote, making myself confront it. I want him to tell me the truth and take responsibility, she answered. I also want to know if he plans to be involved if this baby is his. I'm not here to fight over him, I swear. I just refuse to build a life with a man who lies this easily. That last line echoed exactly how I felt in that moment. We were strangers, but our anger overlapped in a strange, crooked way. I realized we were both standing in different rooms of the same burning house. Just on opposite sides of his stories, both of us inhaling the smoke. That image is still how I think of it now, honestly. I told her I appreciated her reaching out, even though it shattered me. I promised I would get tested, because she mentioned they sometimes skipped protection. Typing that felt like another betrayal, but I needed to be honest with myself. She sent a final message before going quiet for a bit. I'm sorry you found out like this, but you deserve to know. The second she stopped answering, I called my friend with shaking hands. She picked up on the first ring and heard my breathing before my words. What happened? Her voice sharpened instantly, no small talk, no warm-up. I started talking too fast, tripping over details about messages and pictures. At one point she stopped me with a sharp, slow down, tell me everything. I laid it out step by step, what the stranger had shown me. The hotel chats, the supplies comment, the pregnancy tests. There was a long silence on the other end while she processed. Then she cursed under her breath hard, which I needed more than sympathy. That man is out of his mind if he thinks he can spin this, she said. We went back and forth about what I should do next. She leaned straight toward confrontation, full exposure, no more playing nice. I hesitated because I knew what he would do when cornered. He would deny, twist, drag both of us through another round of gaslighting. I was not sure if I had the strength for that yet. "What are you scared of?" she finally asked, voice softer now. I stared at the ceiling while I answered, because it hurt to say aloud. "I'm scared he will lie so well that I doubt myself again. I already tried to believe him once, look where that got me." Saying it like that made me hear how small I had been living. After we hung up, I sat alone with both chats open. On one side, the woman who might be carrying his child. On the other, the man who promised he would call me before bed. My phone felt heavier than any object that size should ever feel. I knew whatever move I made next would change everything permanently. I did not reach out to him yet, though I wanted to scream. Instead, I spent the next hour screenshotting and saving every single message. I backed them up in cloud folders and emailed them to myself. He had taught me not to trust his words, so I trusted proof instead. Somewhere in that process, my grief started hardening into something closer to resolve. By the time the sun went down, I had made a quiet decision. I would not warn him about what I knew, not this time. No more hinting, no half questions, no gentle openings for new stories. The next conversation about this would not happen on a phone screen. He would walk into it at the airport, and there would be nowhere left to hide. I spotted him coming out of a river. LS before he saw me. Rolling suitcase behind him, backpack strapped tight, that easy tired stride. He looked exactly like a man coming home from a normal trip. For a moment my body reacted before my brain, stepping forward automatically. Then I remembered the screenshots in my bag and locked my legs. He scanned the crowd, then his eyes landed on me and lit up. He lifted his hand, smile wide, already moving in my direction. I watched his face, not his feet, waiting for any flicker of guilt. There was none, just relief, like he trusted his stories completely. That calmness made something cold settle in my chest. He dropped the handle and opened his arms like we were fine. "Hey," he started, leaning in for a hug and a kiss. I stepped back just one pace, but it felt like a mile. His mouth paused mid-move, confusion flashing across his features. I kept my hands on my sides so I wouldn't fold. "We need to talk," I said, voice low but steady enough. No welcome home, no small jokes, just those 4 words between us. He glanced around at the people moving past, then back at me. "Right now?" he asked, forcing a little chuckle that did not land. "Yeah, right now," I answered and nodded toward a row of seats. We walked there in silence, his suitcase rattling behind us annoyingly loud. I sat at the end of the row, closest to the exit. He dropped into the chair beside me, eyes still searching my face. "What's going on?" he asked, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. I pulled the manila envelope from my bag and set it between us. He stared at it like it might contain a job offer or bill. "What's that?" he asked, trying to keep his tone casual. "Everything I need to be sure I'm not crazy," I answered. I slid the packet closer and lifted the flap with shaking fingers. The printed messages, the hotel listings, the test photos, all together. The first sheet I laid on his thigh showed the hotel reservation. His name, the dates, the location, all in black and white. He glanced down, then up, then down again, jaw tightening a little. "That again," he muttered, rubbing his forehead like he had a headache. "We already talked about this on the phone, remember?" "Keep going," I told him, ignoring that line completely. Next page, the screenshots where he called that hotel our spot. His words about bringing extra supplies so we don't run out again. I watched the moment he read that line, his eyes stalled. It looked like watching a car skid on ice in slow motion. He swallowed, cleared his throat, tried on a frown like it might help. "These are private," he whispered, fingers tightening on the paper. "They're also mine now," I answered, because they involved my marriage. I dropped the next set of pages on top of his hand. His chat logs with her, including the part where he described me. His gaze ran over his own words about me being basically done. About us being just roommates, about me supposedly seeing someone else. The color drained from his face in stages like a dimmer sliding. For the first time since he landed, the confidence slipped out. He looked smaller, cornered, like he finally saw the trap he built. You went through my phone, he hissed, voice sharp and low. I didn't touch your phone, I answered, keeping my eyes on his. She sent me everything, I added, and watched that land. That detail knocked him back more than any printout had. His shoulders dropped like someone cut a cord behind his back. He sat there silent for a few long breaths, just staring down. I can explain, he finally said, which almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. I've heard you explain for weeks, I told him, my voice rough. You're out of versions now. He shook his head once, slow, searching for some angle left. She's exaggerating, he started, fingers drumming against his knee. You know how some people get when they're emotional and scared. She's using the pregnancy to trap me, that's what this is. Hearing him call it this, instead of a child, made my skin crawl. She thought we were over, I reminded him, tapping the page. She thought I was a roommate, remember that story? That's not an exaggeration, that's a lie you crafted detail by detail. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried another route. I was confused, okay, everything got complicated. You weren't confused booking hotels, I shot back, heat rising. You weren't confused grabbing half a box of condoms before leaving. His eyes flicked up at that, surprise cutting through his practiced regret. Like he genuinely did not expect me to bring that part in. Yeah, I added, I counted. He leaned back, hands on his face now, elbows wide. For a second I saw something like shame cross his features. Then he dragged his palms down and forced eye contact again. I messed up, he said, voice softer, tears starting to gather. I'm not going to stand here and pretend I didn't. Ho's words would have meant something months earlier, maybe. Right then they felt like another strategy, not real ownership. What you did wasn't a slip, I told him, keeping my tone even. It was a whole side relationship, built over months with planning. And you kept sleeping with me like nothing was wrong. He flinched at that, glancing toward the floor for a second. I still loved you, he argued, like that solved anything at all. I just felt seen with her in a different way. He searched my face for understanding, for some crack in my stance. All he found was exhaustion sitting where love used to be. You told her you barely touched me, I reminded him, tapping the line. I read that right after remembering us last week before you left. He closed his eyes, jaw working, hands clasped tightly between his knees. I was trying to make her feel secure, he muttered, almost to himself. That doesn't mean I didn't care about you too. That sentence finally snapped something clean inside me. Not in a dramatic, screaming way, in a very still way. You cared about how we made you feel, I said quietly. You didn't care about what your choices did to either of us. He watched me while I said that, and this time he had no comeback. A family walked past us laughing, dragging carry-ons, and it hurt. Not because I wanted their exact life, but because of the normalcy. We sat in the middle of that chaos, tearing our life apart silently. I realized no one around us knew a marriage was ending at their feet. Pain like that feels weirdly invisible, even when it fills your entire body. He reached over suddenly, fingers brushing my wrist, trying for contact. Please, he said, eyes glossy now, voice cracking for real. We can go to counseling, I can cut her off today. I'll call her right now if you want, I'll block everything. I just need you to give me one more chance. And I'm not going to lie, hearing him beg hit an old reflex. The part of me trained to patch things up reached for him automatically. For a brief second I imagined nodding, agreeing, walking out together. Figured we'd go home, argue for months, maybe pretend to rebuild. Then I pictured the other woman sitting somewhere, hand on her stomach. I already gave you chances, I said, pulling my arm back. You just used them to get better at hiding. He shook his head, tears sliding now, wiping them away angrily. You're throwing our whole life away because I screwed up on a trip. That line made me laugh once, empty and sharp. This wasn't a one-time thing, I reminded him, tapping the stack again. These messages cover months, plans, promises, future talks. You built a second story while living in the first one. I'm not throwing anything away, I'm just stepping out of the lie. My voice stayed calm, which shocked both of us. He stared at me like he did not recognize who he was looking at. I came back to fix things, he insisted, gesturing toward his bags. I knew I had to cut it off and focus here. That's why I didn't talk to you much the last few days. I shook my head because that revisionist spin almost impressed me. No, I answered, steady eyes locked on his. You came back because your trip ended and you had a return ticket. You didn't confess, she did. You didn't protect me, she warned me. So you don't get to frame this like some noble decision. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, breathing hard through his nose. For the first time, I saw something like fear behind his eyes. Not fear of losing me exactly, but fear of consequences. When we leave this building, where am I going? He finally asked. The fact that he still assumed I would drive him hurt in a fresh way. You're going wherever you can stay, I answered, keeping it practical. Friend's place, hotel, extended stay, whatever you find. I'm going home alone. He blinked slow, like those words took extra time to sink in. You're kicking me out before we even talk to anyone, he whispered. We've been talking for weeks, I reminded him quietly. It just took another woman to hand me the full script. I'm not doing a joint therapy audition so you can keep lying prettier. He stared at me, chest rising fast, then dropped his gaze to the floor. The calm in my voice seemed to scare him more than yelling would have. You're serious? He asked, looking back up, eyes red and shining. I nodded once because there was nothing left to negotiate. I'll find a lawyer, I added, each word landing heavier inside my ribs. We'll divide things fairly. I'm not trying to destroy you financially. I just won't be your cover while you play two lives anymore. A long silence settled between us, loud in my ears despite the crowd. He stared at the pile of paper like it might rearrange itself. Finally, he gathered the pages, stacked them, and shoved them back toward me. Keep your little case file, he muttered, suddenly bit. Or again. You always loved being right more than being happy. That line used to work on me. It used to send me spiraling, checking myself for overreactions. This time, it just sounded like a man who lost control of the story. I would have loved being safe, I answered, lifting the envelope. That option disappeared in a hotel room you paid for. He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping, grabbing his suitcase handle hard. For a second, he looked like he might walk away without another word. Then he stopped and turned back, eyes scanning my face one more time. If you change your mind, call me, he said, voice tired now. I still love you whether you see it or not. I see it, I answered. That's the problem. He flinched at that, just a tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth. Then he turned and headed toward the exit on the opposite side. I watched him join the stream of travelers until he disappeared behind a pillar. Walking back to the parking garage felt unreal, like I was underwater. I kept waiting for myself to break, to collapse against a wall. Instead, I moved in a straight line, keys already in hand, body on autopilot. The breakdown would come later, I knew, when the adrenaline wore off. Right then, I just needed to get home without calling him back. In the car, I sat for a minute before starting the engine. My phone buzzed on the seat, one new message at the top. It was from her. Did he arrive yet? She wrote. I stared at the question, then typed slowly. Yes, I showed him everything, I answered. I told him it's over. There was a long pause, then her reply appeared in short bursts. Thank you for telling me. I'll handle my side now. I wanted to ask what that meant, how she planned to handle it. Whether she would keep him involved, whether she would cut him off. Whether the baby would know any of this history years from now. But that part of the story wasn't mine to direct anymore. I locked my phone and finally started the car. The drive home was quiet except for my own thoughts arguing. Part of me replayed every good memory, trying to build a case for him. Another part laid each new piece of evidence on top of those moments. You can't unknow what you've seen, no matter how hard you bargain. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the second voice was winning. Inside the house, everything looked exactly like the day he left. His shoes by the door, jacket tossed over the same chair. It bothered me how untouched it all felt, like the place waited for him. I walked straight past everything and went to our bedroom. My hand shook when I reached for the nightstand drawer. I pulled it open and there it was, the box. Less full than it should have been, but still more than enough. I lifted it out, turned it over, listened to the faint rattle inside. Those stupid little packets had started this whole unraveling in my head. Now they just felt like leftovers from some stranger's life. For a second, I pictured throwing the whole thing in the trash. Or cutting them open one by one just out of spite. I even imagined mailing them to him with no note. In the end, I set the box back in the drawer instead. Closing it felt like shutting a door I was not planning to reopen. That night, I slept on one side of the bed without thinking. The other side stayed perfectly smooth, untouched, colder to the eye. I woke up a few times reaching out, then caught myself mid-move. Each time I pulled my hand back and curled into myself again. Muscle memory takes longer to unlearn than any promise. In the weeks after, I made appointments and phone calls and lists. Doctor visit, tests, legal consultations, budget spreadsheets. Practical steps stacked up where love used to sit. I cried in bathrooms in my car, once in a grocery aisle. But I never called him, not once, and that still surprises me. Now when I open that drawer for anything else, I see the box. It sits in the corner, still there, still sealed the way I left it. I keep it on purpose, not because I plan to use what's inside. It reminds me how far I will go now to protect myself. No one gets to pack half their honesty anymore and call it love.